WWL Houses are a Scandinavian company with factories in the UK, Sweden and Latvia. We manufacture modular and timber-framed houses, apartments, classrooms, health centres and offices. We operate throughout Europe and are based in Hertfordshire here in the UK. We manufacture and install from one house to a complete development. We do not have a standard range, we manufacture purely to what a client requests.
The construction industry shapes our world. From the buildings that we call home, to our workplaces, the roads and railway lines that we travel on, the infrastructure that enables transportation and generates our power, and the environments where we nurture, the construction sector has a fundamental impact on every aspect of our society. For centuries, the way we build our world has remained largely unchanged. We use many of the same materials and processes. We still build a prototype structure in its final location on a site that is always unique, at the mercy of our surroundings and the elements. Though the concept of developing structures away from their sites is nothing new, our changing cultures, rapidly expanding population, shifting workforce demographics and ever more technological world are now heralding a new dawn for the concept of off-site techniques and seeing them take a decided shift toward the world of manufacturing.
The challenges we have as an industry now are different and unprecedented. We have headlines that suggest we're not able to deliver what we said we were going to deliver.
There's a whole load of expertise in manufacturing and automation and other sectors that we could never get our hands on because we were never quite close enough to them. And it feels like the pace at which this will move could be incredibly quick.
If we drive too much in terms of cookie-cutter approach to design, etc., I think we may end up not realising the benefits and going back to more traditional methods because people need to want it. It can't be forced on people.
The move towards a different model of delivery for me is crucial. It's crucial if businesses are going to survive in terms of their financial stability. It's also the key to growing margins.
So, could these approaches truly transform construction? Could they improve quality, cut costs and raise productivity, while helping us tackle issues like the lack of skills coming into the sector and the housing crises facing many nations? And why, if the benefits are so compelling, have we not seen widespread uptake to date? This is how construction could soon become manufacturing. Unlike almost every other sector that delivers physical products to its customers and end users, construction creates unique products in unique outdoor locations every time it delivers. While some buildings and structures can be constructed repetitively using the same designs and materials, such as restaurants, hotels, or prisons, no two sites are identical. As such, the industry is in effect always delivering prototype products for its customers, while striving to achieve quality, efficiency, and a safe working environment, without disrupting surrounding communities. Approaching the design and construction process with an off-site mindset that is much closer to the concept of manufacturing enables work to be moved away from the unique challenges of each job site and into controlled conditions. Here, economies of scale can be achieved through production lines that embrace automation and use standardized elements. By having teams focused on producing specific aspects of a building component repeatedly under the same conditions, productivity can be increased and quality can be substantially improved, reducing the number of defects in the completed building. There is also the benefit of reducing time spent on site, where the costs of providing temporary power, accommodation and facilities can quickly add up, and where the potential for disruption is high. While some of these time and cost savings are of course offset or occasionally even cancelled out by other elements of the process, the benefits of moving away from the site environment are still compelling. Quite aside from the advantages in delivery, off-site approaches appear to provide attractive solutions to a number of the challenges currently facing our wider society. These techniques could allow housing to be delivered more rapidly in high-density urban areas, helping to tackle the housing crises currently facing many developed nations. They could also enable the fast construction of infrastructure projects, enabling new and emerging communities to grow. An underlying contributor to the housing crisis currently facing the UK is a lack of skilled operatives entering the construction workforce. Off-site approaches could help to address that by reducing the demand for labour capable of constructing homes with traditional methods. The extent to which works are taken away from construction sites varies significantly. At one end of the spectrum, volumetric solutions create entire enclosed spaces in a factory and then deliver those to site for installation or assembly with other similar elements. Some buildings may incorporate a degree of volumetric construction in the form of bathroom pods or plant spaces. Conversely, non-volumetric systems are large elements of a building or structure that are prefabricated before being brought to site. Panelised systems such as cross-laminated timber or structurally insulated panel systems, known as SIPs, fall into this category, as do unitised facades and large precast concrete elements. Finally, component-based approaches take the concepts to a far more granular level, effectively creating a kit of parts and drawing on a series of predetermined items that can be produced, delivered to site, installed, operated and maintained with ease. To understand more, I spoke to industry expert Mark Farmer, founder and chief executive of Cast Consultancy and author of Modernise or Die, a landmark report published in 2016.
What does off-site mean to you?
It's an umbrella term, so off-site construction essentially is an umbrella term and it means a whole lot of different things, but in essence it's talking about transferring activities, construction activities that would have happened at the final work phase on a construction site. It's talking about moving those somewhere else, and that somewhere else might be a remote factory hundreds of miles away. It might be a consolidation centre close to the site, or actually in some instances might mean that some form of assembly or pre-assembly is being done actually on the site.
What's the benefit of doing that?
One of the problems we have in the construction industry is inherent in the way that we deliver, because we're not building cars and aeroplanes. We're building buildings that are in locations, and invariably we tend to do that building in situ at the final work phase.
It's almost a prototype every time, isn't it? Yeah.
So everything we do is essentially bespoke. Very little harnessing of repetition, standardisation, commonality. Architects will respond to a brief and design something from first principles, and then we build that. And actually, if you're doing it right with the right process and use of technology, then actually you start to address the issue, which is the real bugbear for construction, which is productivity. And I think the other thing is the term off-site construction is perhaps a particular hobby horse of mine, that perhaps we should be better using the term off-site manufacturing.
Around the world, numerous countries, governments, organisations and suppliers have embraced off-site approaches. In Singapore, the country's construction regulator has introduced a mandatory target that 65% of high-rise building superstructures should use prefabricated, pre-finished modular construction. The project team working on the Crowne Plaza hotel extension at Singapore's Changi Airport claimed that embracing this approach reduced the number of operatives on site by 40% and brought the time to construct a floor down from 2 to 4 weeks to just 4 days. The country's emerging Canberra Drive development, consisting of 8 mid-rise blocks, is reportedly the world's largest modular construction project. In Australia, Hickory Group used prefabricated elements to construct Melbourne's 60-storey Collins House, improving quality, reducing programme duration, and overcoming the logistical challenges presented by the 12.5-metre wide site. Hickory adopted similar approaches on the city's La Trobe Tower. In the United States, Factory OS recognised the benefits of embracing a manufacturing mindset and market their volumetric solution as the answer to housing demand and the lack of skilled workers entering the workforce. In a similar vein, the slickly presented Katerra are taking long-established panelised and component-based construction approaches, but delivering them through a business that they claim is highly technology-orientated, deliberately employing expertise from beyond the construction sector to drive innovation. Off-site approaches have also been employed across the UK market for several decades. Indeed, the concept first came to prominence after the Second World War, when the country rebuilt large portions of its building stock. Particularly notable projects in recent times include London's 23-storey Creekside Wharf, which is formed from volumetric modular units, and the vast Alderhay Hospital, which extensively embraced off-site fabrication techniques. On the horizon, off-site approaches are being explored on some of the UK's most significant projects, including the new nuclear power station at Hinkley Point and Heathrow Airport's third runway. However, despite this surge in interest, last year just 1% of new homes in the UK were manufactured off-site. If the benefits are so compelling, and the industry is seemingly almost overserved by suppliers, why are we not seeing a widespread shift towards an off-site manufacturing mindset in UK construction, and in particular in the house building sector? For decades, a number of factors have held us back. Firstly, at a cultural level, the construction industry is notoriously resistant to change, and the methods used to construct many of today's buildings and infrastructure have remained fundamentally unchanged for centuries. If that cultural barrier weren't significant enough, we live in a society where standardisation is celebrated and even desired in areas, but where the vast majority of consumers seek a bespoke building or home. This is in notable contrast to some other cultures around the world, where off-site manufacturing techniques and modular homes have thrived. In the UK, many consumers perceive the term off-site to mean low-quality, boxy-looking modular buildings or homes that lack character or architectural appeal. And the country's Grenfell Tower disaster has hardened views around the importance of building quality. These preconceptions are reinforced by mortgage lenders and insurance firms, who have been wary of backing such schemes in the past, dissuading consumers and developers alike. Several examples of attractive modular architecture have emerged over the years, only to fall from favour again as trends progress. Within the industry, some project teams have experienced low-quality off-site solutions or discovered that cost savings are merely offset elsewhere. Others lament the transporting of air that some volumetric solutions require, or that any value achieved is not always passed on in a sector where margins are infamously low. The use of off-the-shelf, customizable volumetric solutions has also proven difficult to apply at scale across the wide variety of physical sites that the construction industry contends with. Conversely, panelized solutions have performed better, able to adapt to different footprints and site constraints, blending the benefits of standardization with a sufficient degree of adaptability. The extent to which true manufacturing approaches have been adopted across the UK sector is also highly varied. While many use the terminology, the degree of automation, efficiency and scale within UK off-site production facilities is on a broad spectrum. In addition to these barriers, driving ultimate value from off-site techniques relies on planning and designing for such an approach from the outset, a challenging task in an industry where contracts and procurement routes are geared towards the engagement of suppliers in the later stages of development.
What is stopping the construction sector, taking that manufacturing approach?
So one of the biggest barriers to the growth of the off-site sector has been the basic delivery model that is adopted in construction at the moment, and the basic environment, the economic environment that construction operates in as well. So what we've moved to in the industry is a highly flexible model where there's very little willingness to invest in fixed costs. So plant, machinery, overheads. There's very little willingness to employ directly, hence the proliferation of subcontracting over the last 30 years. So actually what you have to do if you want to move to an off-site manufactured-led approach, you have to invest. So there's costs of setting up an establishment. Depending on what scale you want to do it, there's invariably the cost of either leasing or building a facility. You have to equip it, which is usually the primary cost of machinery. And then you have to hold a payroll because you can't really do off-site manufacturing with a transient workforce. You need to employ people, you need to train them.
I mean, in terms of the people that have made the investment, where have you seen the kind of best practice so far in terms of people that are taking the leap and going down that road?
The common theme for me are businesses that have put technology front and centre in their propositions. So they're coming forward with a manufacturing approach, and invariably in the volumetric world that means a factory as well, and sometimes quite a large factory with lots of investment. But there is a real difference between, as going back to the difference between off-site construction and off-site manufacturing. Building in a shed, I don't believe is scalable for the future. Manufacturing in a factory is the future, and the manufacturing for me has to be digitally enabled. And what we're now seeing, and it's only really in the last 2 or 3 years it's starting to really become apparent, is that the pace of change in technology is now fundamentally transforming how manufacturing can be done. And that's impacting business models, it's impacting the ability to create digital platforms that are much more scalable in terms of manufacturing output. You create a digital design front end to your proposition that then feeds through to digital manufacturing machinery in your factory. It's all hardwired, it's all parametrically controlled. And then you create something that I believe is a lot more scalable.
It's technology that's going to help, you think, make that step change, make that difference?
I think so. It's a personal opinion, but the evidence points I see when I go around the industry and talk to people, and some of the sort of real things coming over the horizon, which are really, really interesting and exciting, all have technology placed at their heart, and not as an afterthought. Actually, if anything, they start with the technology and then work out what the manufacturing is that supports the technology. I think sometimes you could retrofit it and it doesn't quite work.
The company was initially formed in 1890, manufacturing joinery items. In 1980, WWL started manufacturing timber-framed houses. We employ some 250 plus workers, including architects, engineers, carpenters, software designers and installers. We turn over in the region of £52 million per annum. WWL was initially formed in 1890, manufacturing joinery items. In 1980, WWL started manufacturing timber-framed houses. We employ some 250 workers, including architects, engineers, carpenters, software designers and installers. We turn over approximately £52 million per annum. A modular home is not a mobile home, nor a manufactured home. Modular homes and timber frame buildings are built from the same materials. Our modular systems and timber framed houses provide high quality, sustainable houses to exacting standards. We do not manufacture a specific range of units, but manufacture everything to a client specification. We also manufacture as little or as much as a client wants. For example, we can supply modular homes complete with bathrooms, kitchens, including appliances, and bedroom wardrobes. We deliver and install buildings throughout Europe. Timber framed houses are part of the World Heritage Scene in Scandinavia, where they have been recognised by UNESCO for their environmental values and still being lived in more than 300 years after they were first built. Our timber framed houses and modular houses are built in a factory controlled environment, delivered in finished sections, assembled on site within days to ensure a stress-free and budget-conscious building process. More than half of Scandinavia is covered in trees. Half of the trees in Scandinavia are pine trees. Tree planting in Scandinavia exceeds the extraction of timber for construction use. The factory was founded in 1890. It was a joinery company manufacturing windows, stairs, joists and eventually modular houses and timber framed houses. Modular and timber framed houses are built alongside timber windows and aluminium timber composite windows and doors. We have a systematic project management process. We start off with design, cost estimate, 3D presentation, construction drawings, energy efficiency calculations, manufacturing period, transport to site and assembly. Our information sheet lists insulation thickness, sound insulation, internal and external wall finishes for each project. The door specification for various door types includes the glass spec, the ironmongery included, the colours internally and externally, as well as sound rating. This is a typical quote showing the material breakdown as well as a DWG drawing heading the estimate. This is a typical drawing in DWG format for information on a project. From this slide you will see the various software programs used by our engineers for calculations and the design of projects. This slide shows various statistics relating to the weight distribution, load pads and hotspots for our project. This is a foundation plan with load points identified for the contractor to instruct on site. This slide shows various construction drawings that are involved in the manufacturing process of a project. Our construction control system is for completion by site-based operators, including site management checklists, foundations inspection lists, and final handover sheets and acceptance forms. On each project, there is a construction management software program saved on the cloud for the client, contractor, and client to comment and download documents. This is an energy calculation sheet for a typical project. This is a sound calculation sheet for a project. Off-site modular construction is a method where timber-framed houses and modular houses are built in a factory and delivered to site in sections. Whilst the house is being built in the factory, the contractor can be building the foundations and running in the services. Modular houses are delivered to site approximately 97% complete. Manufacturing time is between 12 weeks and 16 weeks, with 5 to 6 days for installation, subject to the size and access to the actual construction site. Timber is cut by computer-controlled CNC machines in the factory. Projects are manufactured on 6-metre and 14-metre butterfly tables in the factory. When the project is completed in the factory, it is wrapped up in rain-resistant packaging for transport. Loading on trucks is BIM computer controlled for takeoff on site in the order for installation. In our manufacturing process for timber framed houses and modular houses, we have adopted design, manufacturing and assembly techniques from the construction, aerospace and automotive industries to bring you high quality homes. This slide shows a typical outside wall makeup U-value of 0.16. This slide shows a typical roof makeup U-value of 0.13. This slide shows a standard load, non-load wall. House assembly for timber framed houses is approximately 80 to 100 square meters per day for a team of 4 installers. This slide shows a typical one-off house. This slide shows 2 semi-detached houses. This slide shows detached houses in a rural setting. This is a development of terraced houses. These are timber-framed detached houses in Scandinavia. This slide shows a complete development site of 116 timber-framed houses in Sweden. These are individual 3 to 4 bedroom houses in a housing development in Norway. These are terraced houses, 2 to 3 bedrooms, a total of 71 houses in Latvia. This relates to multi-story buildings. This is a modular multi-story building. This is a modular apartment building for 2 to 3 bedroom houses or apartments. This slide relates to a gym and sports building. The following slide shows you the interior when it's finished. This shows you the interior of the previous slide for a gym and sports building. This slide relates to modular terraced houses in Denmark. We also manufacture timber frame panels for concrete buildings. To all intents and purposes, we can clad a building in timber frame panels. This means reduced foundation loads, faster construction, and lower costs than traditional curtain walling systems. This is the concrete frame of the previous slide, clad in timber frame panels. This slide relates to multi-story modular houses. This slide perhaps highlights the question as to what do we use, a timber frame building or a modular building. Timber frame has no transport restrictions as the units are broken down to sizes that can be loaded onto a flatbed truck and transported to site. Whilst a modular building has width and height restrictions according to the truck and according to the road to the site. Length is not a problem as the length can be up to 12 meters long. The minimum width for a modular unit is usually about 3.5 meters wide and 2.9 meters high. Over these sizes requires a wide load certificate. The maximum width for a modular unit is 4.99 meters and the maximum height is 3.85 to 4 meters, all subject to local conditions like bridges, roads and other obstructions leading to site. This is a typical social housing project in Scandinavia. This is an example of an apartment block built using modular blocks. This slide relates to social housing. This is more examples of social housing. This is typical student accommodation built in modular format, including kitchens, bathrooms and study area. This is asylum seekers' temporary accommodation in Sweden and included kitchens, bed bunks, bathroom and laundry areas. This is a typical interior fit-out for modular units where required. This is a social housing project in Cambridgeshire using timber framed housing. This is examples of timber framed housing in the Midlands in England. Again, these are examples of typical modular and timber framed houses and apartments. We also manufacture timber and aluminium timber composite windows and doors, either opening inwards or outwards and up to Passive House standard. Timber or aluminium timber composite windows and doors in pine, Meranti or oak double glazed. the U value is 0.75. The sound reduction, depending upon the glazing, is between 33 and 48 decibels. This slide shows typical ironmongery and seals in a window in a triple glazed unit. This slide is an example of one of our timber or aluminium timber composite windows and doors, which can be manufactured in pine, Meranti or oak in triple glazing. The U value is 0.78. The sound reduction is either between 33 to 48 decibels, subject to the glass specification. We also manufacture timber or aluminium timber composite windows and doors, quadruple glazed to passive house standards. With 4 layers of glass, the U value is 0.67. The sound reduction is 32 decibels, subject to the glass specification. We have a 45-minute fire certificate, and the life expectancy for this type of unit is 60 years. We have a test certificate, fire test certificate for our timber windows and our timber framed walls for 60-minute fire rating. If you want to have a look at it, please call me. Certificates and awards for WWL houses. These are standard certificates for materials used in the factory. Certificates and insurances for WWL houses. These are our contact details, website address, and contact email address. We also manufacture modular and flat pack bathrooms, constructed both in sections and as pods. They can be carried through doorways if required on refurb jobs, or dropped in as pods on new build jobs. They can come with baths or showers, toilets and wash hand basins, ancillary bathroom equipment, tiles and floors, as well as wet rooms. Bathrooms can be made for the disabled with special fittings either in pod form or in flat pack form. The bathrooms can be made for the disabled with special fittings either in pod form or flat pack form. This slide shows a pod being dropped into a new build project. That's the end of this CPD seminar.